Which one of your players did the best in the NFL, would you say?
Oh my gosh.
Wally Chambers.
Wally did. Wally, played. Wally came on there right after the Rice Bowl. And probably the Rice Bowl winning that probably helped me get Wally Chambers and recruit him. And of course, Teddy Taylor was a great player. Jim Geis was an excellent quarterback, one of the best that ever played here. Fred Trokey was a tremendous guard. We had some great players that we were able to recruit in the 60s. And I think by winning the Rice Bowl helped us as we went on. And it's not only did our scholarships increase, the coaching staff increased. And I was very lucky when I started. I had a good coaching staff. There was just 4 of us. There was that actually started. I took the backs and I had an offensive line coach. I had a defensive line coach and a secondary coach. And then as time went on, that increased, and then it's even gotten bigger now, I think, than what it used to be. But
then in the 70s and 80s, you had all of those excellent running backs that
oh yes, we were blessed, and I think that helped us get us, because you could go in their home or bring them on the campus, and I love to bring them in on the campus because their campus has always been very beautiful, and sell them on our faculty, what great faculty we had that worked with them and everything. But having those great running backs, that encouraged other tailbacks to go. But recruiting is always tough, but the way I recruited a lot of times is naturally finding the kids. But then I see a lot of schools and a lot of people don't, for an example, I would call up, say, Florida State. Maybe there's a kid in Florida that we wanted, and he thought he was going to go to Florida State. And I just asked Coach Bowden, are you going to recruit this kid? And I said, I don't mean, Dean, I mean, are you actually going to offer him a scholarship? If he said yes, then I went on to somebody else. I didn't waste my time. I did the same thing at the University of Kentucky on Kentucky kids and Tennessee and those places. And I think I learned to do that as time went on. Because at the beginning, I always thought, heck, we're just as good as them. Let's just work hard and recruit them. But it doesn't work that way, especially as the years went on, because kids got more interest. They're going to be on TV, and they're going to play in bowl games and things like that, and that made it tougher. So, but we were very lucky to have some great running backs. And I thought we got a bad rap too, but saying we were so much a running football team, because you go back and look and you see a lot of the records that we had throwing the football.
Yeah.
But one thing I think you got to do to be a consistent winner, you got to be able to run the football.
Yeah.
And I believe that wholeheartedly. I think there comes a time in that fourth quarter you're ahead. You better be able to make some first downs and run the clock down. And I see people right now. How the philosophy of the game has changed offensively from the standpoint of one back, spread, and throw the football. But you just watch how many of them get down around that 5-yard line, can't put it in the end zone, or they can't run the clock out in that fourth quarter. They have a short lead and they can't run the clock out, and they got to punt the ball. Now the other team's going down there to score to beat you.
He's starting to get fired up.
Yeah, I can.
But you mentioned talking to Bobby Bowden. I know there, at one time, and we still do. But at one time, for 1AA football teams such as ours, Florida was a much richer recruiting territory than it is now. See, Florida's got a much larger population than Kentucky, and consequently a whole lot more kids playing football in Florida. But at one time, after Tampa dropped football, there was a time that there were only 4 universities in Florida playing football. Miami, Florida, Florida State, and Florida A&M. Well, now you've got Central Florida
UCF,
and South
USF,
Florida and FIU and Florida Atlantic and the number of schools playing Division I, either BCS or FCS football in Florida, has more than doubled. So it's a little tougher for some of the rest of the country that went to Florida for all that talent to do that these days.
And people got to looking where our kids were coming from, and then you got to seeing other schools go into, even before these schools started playing football, you got to competing with a lot of other schools when they see what good kids we were getting out of Florida. But you know how we started getting kids out of Florida? My defensive line coach was Bill Shannon, and Bill was a tremendous motivator and a great coach. And he would go during Christmas, go down there and fish with a couple of coaches that he knew, that he had met through fishing. And he would bring back film. And that's how we got started. We take that film and we look at it. And I started out recruiting kids. Basically, I felt like you had to have numbers. So I would take 4 scholarships, and I would get me 16 players, and I would take them, maybe looking at them from standpoint of speed or size, and offer them a tuition fees and book scholarship, and try to get 16 kids. And I felt like if 50% of those young men turned out to be players, then I'm way ahead of the game. And then as they got better, I'd increase their scholarship. I felt like you had to get numbers. But that's the way we started recruiting Florida, was Bill Shannon.
Roy was part of my job at one time at Eastern was I chaired the scholarship committee. And football had 63 scholarships, 63 full scholarships. But you could split those, and you could have, it was also a head count sport, you could have as many as 85 people getting some scholarship assistance. And generally, then what would happen, and this was all perfectly within the rules and the federal regulations, you could mix need-based aid with the scholarship to where the student athlete had the same benefit as being on a full scholarship.
Right.
But Roy was able to have, would have 85 folks getting aid. He would have some walk-ons. And then generally, he would wind up with his scholarship budget not completely expended. And then he was able to help kids with summer school, which was also perfectly legal. And the thing that I was always proud of, Roy, was that if you had somebody who'd been with us for 5 years, redshirt year, and 4 years, and they come up and their football playing days were over, and they were 6 hours short of graduation, that sort of thing, you always saw to it that they had the scholarship assistance to finish up their degree.
Well, you know, when you go out and recruit, you got to sell the kid and the parents on the fact that you're going to do everything you can to see that the kid graduates. And there's no reason for him not to graduate here. I mean, if he'll go to class and do the schoolwork, and we have tutors, particularly now, and he's got all kinds of help, the computers, the Bradsky Center, you know, and everything to help him. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason he wouldn't. So if he hasn't graduated by the time he's played his scholarship, I wanted to see him get his degree, and I would find some way to help him get that.
Roy mentioned the Bradsky Center, and going back to one of your earlier questions about successful players, and there were a lot of them. We mentioned Wally Chambers at one time. The highest paid offensive lineman and the highest paid defensive lineman in the National Football League were guys that had played for Roy kids. Offensive lineman John Jackson, defensive lineman Chad Bradsky, who was also the nephew of one of your colleagues, Bob Klein, in the Department of Government.
But Chad was a walk-on.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And you know, and wound up with a long and very successful NFL career. But Chad has very generously provided funds to create the Bradsky Center it's over in Alumni Coliseum, that greatly benefits the academic success of our student athletes. Our student athletes have a higher graduation rate than the general population. I think a lot of people don't understand and appreciate that. But there's a wonderful example of a young man that walked on here, was given an opportunity to play football by Roy and his staff, and turned out to be very successful. Didn't forget his roots and his giving back.
That's right. And we've had several like that. You know, we had several players that helped us build the Mobley building, you know, when we fundraised for that. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, we've got a lot of our players. We have a lot of them right now. We have what we call a Warren Cleat Club, where an ex-player, you know, can give money back to, and we try to encourage them, you know. There's no set thing. You have to give so much money to be a member of the Warren Cleat Club. If you played football here, then you are a Warren Cleat member, where you give a dime or not. And we have, I think that's really helped the program here with a little extra money to do some things, particularly now, that you couldn't do before.